Welcome back to another edition of the Course Creation Incubator podcast. I'm your host, Gina Onativia, excited to be with you today and kick off another season of guest episodes. And we've got who I think is the greatest copywriter living today, Megan O'Leary, on the podcast today. Now, there's a reason why I wanted Megan on the show to talk about copy, because it's the most powerful weapon you have to sell your course. This is the tool to make sure your course is a bestseller. I get asked all the time, Gina, how do I make sure my course launch is successful? How do I make sure I have a best-selling course? And when your copy speaks to your people and resonates with them, it is course gold. I was just talking to a fellow marketer today about the old days, where this is 10 years ago. You would put up a course, it was $1,000, people would buy it because they wanted information, because it was novel, no one else was doing it. And you had to do just a little bit of marketing, have a great sales page, and you would sell. Now that doesn't work anymore, obviously. And then the pandemic hit, and people wanted information, they wanted entertainment, they wanted a distraction, and courses had another spike. But now with AI and technology, we are in a different era. And how do you make sure you stay competitive? How do you make sure your courses and programs sell? And my mentor and client, Bo Eason, who I've had on the show, always talks about you have to be the most valuable person in the room. When you are the most valuable person in the room, the phone will never stop ringing. Your emails will never stop pinging because you're the best, because you provide so much value for people that they want you all the time. And how do you become the most valuable person in the room? By your copy, by expressing why you bring so much value, by communicating your value and speaking that powerfully to your audience. And that's why I turn to people like O'Leary to help me explain my value, so I can go to students and clients and say, this is why I'm a must hire. Because sometimes I have trouble doing that. I have a big mouth, but sometimes I have trouble explaining why I feel I am the best course creator, course coach, and digital strategist in the room. And that's why I hire people like O'Leary. Because when you have the copy thing down, doors open. You make money. You get better clients. You are never not booked. And that's why, by the way, O'Leary and I are teaming up for a brand new course called the Conversion Copywriting Playbook, where we're going to teach you the systems we use to convert in our different marketing campaigns and our email campaigns. There's also going to be a very nice course marketing bonus in there. I haven't trained on course marketing. I haven't released a new training on this in a little while, and I'm excited. So if you're interested, join the wait list. We're going to take limited spots because we're going to teach it live. We're going to teach it live because we want to pitch and catch. We want to customize it for who's in the room. We want to do some critiques. So if you're interested, I'll link to the waitlist in the show notes, coursecreationboutique.com/copy waitlist. Save your spot so you have dibs when we officially open doors. I also brought on O'Leary in this episode to talk through some mistakes that we are seeing in terms of copy and content and campaigns. Because there's a lot happening with AI, like I mentioned earlier in this episode. So to be the most valuable person in the room, you want to avoid these mistakes and show up like a rock star. So O'Leary's going to talk us through it. I'll shut up so we can listen in on our interview. Megan O'Leary, welcome back to the podcast. So good to see you.
So good to be back. You know, I was thinking about the last time we talked on the podcast. You and I talk all the time, but it was like 6 years ago. Life and the world was a lot different. Yeah, it was
You're
2018.
kidding.
Obviously pre-pandemic. A lot of things have changed since then. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be back and talking about our favorite topic, which is words on the screen and words on the page.
our favorite topic and the worst instances of it, right? We're going to talk about the horror stories, which is really so fun. But before we get there, though, I do want to do a little plug because you and I are teaming up. I'm just going to call it the ultimate sales copywriting course. Does that horrify you or what? That I'm overhyping. There is no such thing as overhyping because you and I are collaborating on something and I think it's going to be magical. And guys, if you've been listening, you know I think Megan O'Leary is the greatest copywriter of all time. I said it in the intro. And we do some really, really good course marketing together and just any marketing, event marketing, course marketing, right? We do the best, in my opinion. And I'm going to be a little arrogant here. So I think we have a lot to share. I think we are really fun and we break down information in a really great way. And I think it's time to let the people know our process. What do you think?
I love it. And just to clarify a little bit, because I am terrified by the idea that I'm the answer to the ultimate sales copy. We're going to do emails in this one. We've
Mhm.
sort of set the fence. Now, a lot of these concepts that we'll talk about could apply to all kinds of copy, but we're going to focus in on helping you make your emails better, whether you're a writer who maybe comes from an editorial background and you want to be more persuasive. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you want to do more of your own copywriting, or you want better language or tools to work with a copywriter, or, you know, a position Gina and I've been in a bunch of times, you're supervising a project and you're supervising copywriters and you want to help them get better. So I think it's going to be a blast, and I'm really looking forward to it. There's something that when you and I come together, it's like that 1 + 1 = 3 equation.
Mhm.
There's something magical that happens, I think, because we come at it from a slightly different perspective. And Gina and I are not afraid to argue with each other, not in a mean way, more in like a devil's advocate. Did you think of this? Did you think of this? We call it pitching and catching. It's super fun. And I think we're going to do some pitching and catching live in the course. So
We sure are going to do some pitching and catching. And we're going to talk about course marketing. You're right. We're going to hone in on emails. We're going to talk about offers and course marketing. There'll be an element of that. There'll be an opportunity for us to critique some work. We have to, right? We're going to do some of that. So the landing page is live, the sales page. I will link to that in the show notes. Check it out. Let me know if you have questions. Just couldn't be more excited to work with you on this, O'Leary. I think people are going to get a ton of information and insights out of not just their emails, but marketing overall.
totally. And I think, you know, one of the things I want to say we're going to talk about is like the role of AI a little bit. You know, this is not an AI
Yes.
course, but if there's one hot topic, and we'll talk about it more today, teaser
Hmm.
alert for today's open loop to leave for today's podcast. If there's anything that's been on the mind of copywriters more this year, I can't think of it than AI, because the question is it going to take over my job? Are we going to even need copywriters in 2 or 3 years? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think we can teach you how to be a more valuable asset to your clients, such that you're not the kind of person that they go, I have ChatGPT, I don't need you anymore. So we're going to teach you how to add more value to your relationships as a copywriter too.
Okay, I love that. And we are on the heels of a episode I put out last week about 3 ways to use AI and 3 ways I think to just not use AI and how to get the most out of it. We're going to expand on some of that today. I don't think there'll be sales copywriters out of the picture in 3 years, just based on what we see that sales copy, especially email, can make or break a campaign and make or break a course or event or whatever you're selling. I think part of this course that we're teaching, O'Leary, is teaching you how to be more of a strategist, I think. Would you agree?
Definitely. And I think strategy is going to be one of the keys if you want to stay relevant. And understanding strategy, working with your client on strategy, redirecting their strategy, those are things that AI just really can't do right now. And I think there's going to be a human mind, and that's where you want to be putting your human mind, is behind the strategy. Now, like transactional stuff, like, hey, thanks for buying this course. You know, good to have you here. By the way, I hated writing those emails anyway. Some of those, like, let AI take the first crack at them. So I think there are going to be advantages and disadvantages, or at least, you know, ways to use it that'll work to our advantage. But we'll get into all that.
We'll get into it. Okay, let's start talking about some of the big whoppers, the copywriting mistakes that we have seen. And we're not going to keep it just for emails. We're just going to expand and just go for it. Okay. Number one, oh, that's a good one. Not warming up your audience right before you make the pitch. And I've got a story, and then please add your thoughts to this, O'Leary. But I remember this was a personal development expert that I did a small project for. This was a couple of years ago. We're at the point where we've worked on so many projects, right, O'Leary? And he was saying, well, I've got this retreat and we do a cold water plunge, we do these guided meditations, like the whole bit. It sounded wonderful. And he had not warmed up his audience in terms of teasing about the retreat or talking about the elements that might happen before the retreat and just went for the sale. Boom, right then and there, right? And wasn't really nurturing like we love to do for ourselves and our clients week to week. And he just went guns a-blazing on this retreat and pretty much got crickets. I think he sold one ticket, and it was an expensive retreat. I should mention that. It was at least $3,000. So this idea of not warming up your audience, not getting them primed for when you're ready to promote.
Totally. And I would even call that like not adding value to the relationship before you
Yes.
ask for something, right? It's you're going straight for the give me $5,000 without, giving the list a little love,
Yeah.
and we have a client, and I think one of the best things that they do, we have a weekly nurture with them, and they give those clients love like 50 weeks out of the year. I'll call it 48, and maybe we promote for 4 weeks out of the year.
Yeah.
But, sometimes we just send an email that's just like I'm going to cheer you on email, like inspiration email, not asking you to do anything, not asking you to download anything. And I think we've seen great results from that community as a result. I wonder why there's one medium that does this all the time, and I wonder why more brands don't take more advantage of it. But it's text marketing, SMS marketing. I feel like SMS marketing is just all like buy, 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 and there's no value there. Like I wish
Yes.
more brands would think about earning my text number, earning my cell phone number, or just delivering like a hit of inspiration. But it's always like 10% off sale, use my coupon, yada, yada, yada. And I don't think they're adding value. I mean, there are a couple brands who do it right. Um, there's a brand called Outerknown that my husband and I enjoy, and they have like a very exclusive pre-sale, and they sell out. So, they give like a 24-hour notice if you're on their list, which is value. That's value, right? That's saying like we value you to like let you get in first. Dean Graziosi does a really good job of this. He sends like value-based texts and does a lot of just value-based Facebook lives to his list all year. And so then, when he comes out with a promotion or something to buy, or when Outerknown comes up with a promotion, they've earned it, right?
Yeah.
We talk about this like building a relationship, like, you got to go step by step. You're not going to ask someone to marry you on the first date. So you can't really
Mm.
ask them to buy a 5K product when they haven't heard from you in months.
They haven't heard from you. You haven't set them up for that. And I love what you're saying about SMS texting because it's so true. We don't tend to add value. And the closest thing, Bo Eason is a co-client of ours, and we have that 66-day championship, which we use as a bonus right now. Could easily be used also as an opt-in. And every few days, you get a pep talk from Bo. I mean, how great! Like the king of pep talks, right, in my opinion. And that could be an easy opt-in to just nurture someone to the next step with them.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be long and complicated. I'm a really big fan of like, 2 paragraphs can be a really awesome pep talk. People are busy. They don't really want to read your manifesto. So it doesn't have to be complicated. So I think we're talking about context here, right? That you really, when you drop an email, you've really got to think of the context of your list. It's not what you say, but when you say it. We've had some talks with copywriters who want to drop some really aggressive messaging in like email 1 or 2, and we're like, this is not the time.
Yeah.
You've got to warm these people up a little bit. And it's about what you offer too. We've been working with a client to work on getting lower dollar promos early in the relationship, that you
Yep.
can't just grab someone cold off Facebook and try to sell them into a $3,000 retreat. Like that's just not going to work. But, can you offer them a $27 offer? Can you offer them a $7 offer? Can you
Mm.
offer them a $97 offer, and like build that relationship up? Kind of like taking someone out for a drink, taking someone out for dinner, then, maybe you go out for an all day event. Like think of it like a relationship, and that you really have to build it up like that.
Yeah, crafting the customer journey. Okay, awesome. Good start. So let's go on to our second biggest mistake and random acts of email. Okay, what is this, O'Leary?
Well, I think the first, we see this in kind of two ways. And I think the first one we see is really well-meaning entrepreneurs and course creators who, for whatever reason, it seems like they get a little shy, right? When it's
Mhm.
time to promote their course. So the promotion plan consists of like a very small button at the bottom of a newsletter, or a very small link at the bottom of a very long email. And when that doesn't work, they get really discouraged really quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this isn't going to work. This business plan is just never going to work. This course thing doesn't work. But I think you have to remember, like, people don't think about you as much as you think about you, right? So
Right.
like, how many people are in my email inbox right now? And if you're like giving me, what did you call it? You had a great word for it, like a whisper. If you like
Yeah,
whisper
whisper.
to
I'll
me,
I'll link to that podcast. Yes.
totally. Like you got to be like loud and proud and like shout out about it because I don't, if you don't do it, I don't know who else is going to do it. I will say this, like my mom bought a lot of my books when they came out. So like, once you exhaust your mom though, if you're not willing to be loud and proud about it, it's just not going to work for you.
Well, I agree with you. We are reluctant, especially if you're starting out, right? And reluctant to get in people's faces. And when it's good news, we want to celebrate. But when we're actually promoting something or trying to get a credit card, we sometimes back off. And why would we do that? This is your creation. This is like, look at me in this copywriting course, right? I'm gonna sing it from the dang rooftops because I know it's gonna be good because I'm doing it with you. So I'm not going to whisper it. I'm not going to hide it. Let's really commit to ourselves and putting ourselves out there and knowing we've got something great to share.
I think it's fear of failure, in the sense
Yeah,
that if
true.
you give a whisper, it's like, oh, well, nobody heard that, so I can walk away. Whereas I think if you go big on it and no one
Yeah.
does anything, it's like a larger failure, but it's equally a failure. So you and I are big fans of campaigns, right? So, we set aside a period of time, like a Monday through Friday, or like a Monday through a Monday, and we want to see you blast out your offer in a respectful way to a list that you've warmed up and added value to, right? Context, right? We're not asking you to
Yeah.
just get out there and spam random people, but 5 emails, a couple of social posts. I want you to be all over your channels too. That was another thing
Yes.
we've had, right? It's like,
Yes.
I'll do an email, but I don't want to do a social post. Like every channel should be singing the same song and
Yeah.
working together because people are just going to miss it. I mean, honestly, it's not even people ignore it. It's like you sent it on a Tuesday and you missed half the people who really wanted to see it. So, send it again on Thursday so they can catch you.
I remember we worked on a client together who had a newsletter and buried the course they were selling, and we kept saying, "Well, no one's going to be able to find this," but it kept insisting, "Well, this is the newsletter," and I get it. I think that was a little. I don't know if it was fear, but they're not going to be able to find it, right? Unless you make it prominent. You send standalone emails. Like you really have to put it out there for people to take notice.
Definitely. And we've even taken the tack sometimes of putting like a little banner at the top of the email, right?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we really try to weave in some particular clients' work, we've tried to weave in story or weave in a lesson. But there are just times that we've said, listen, this lesson is great, but like we need a little banner at the top that says like expires tomorrow, so
Yes.
they can see expires
There's
tomorrow. Okay,
tomorrow.
interesting. And then they can read the story and go on. But I'll see emails sometimes where it's 3/4 just text. And then, like you said, the baby button at the bottom. And that's probably
Not
not going to move the needle.
not going to work. What's the second aspect of this random acts of marketing? Because I know we have another one that we love to hate.
Well, I'd like to admit that I have done this. So, glass houses, throwing stones, it's ghosting. So,
Mm.
not emailing your list for months, building a list and then just dropping away. And then, you drop a promo email and you're shocked when nobody reads it, opens it, or checks it, and again, I think this goes back to thinking about the personal relationship with your list. You've got to be building up that emotional bank account. Otherwise, people are just gonna uh, either tune out or maybe forget completely who you are.
Yeah,
Um,
that's happened to me where happens all the time, right? So in my personal email, I'll see an expert in there and I'll say, who is Shirley? I don't remember Shirley, right? And if I disappear and my podcast goes away, O'Leary, I don't expect people to, who the heck is Gina? Right? So it's my job to make sure that they have an idea of who I am and they know, oh, great, I'm going to get some awesome course tips here. So Shirley is telling me about how to take care of my baby because it's been years, right? Because I signed up for Shirley's list when Tristan was, 1.5. And now Tristan's 11. I don't really care what Shirley has to say. So there's that missed opportunity and there's also that disconnect that happens.
Totally. And Shirley's going to suffer too because, well, I mean that like Shirley
Her
doesn't have a
list
clean
aged
list.
out. Her list aged out. Yeah, I know.
So we'll talk a little bit about, we're going to talk a baby bit about email deliverability in our course, but like that's part of it too. Like if you're sending to people and no one's opening, it's going to hurt your email results down the line. So yes, this actually really can hurt you in multiple ways. Who else has been the worst at this recently? Are restaurants. I don't know whether restaurants have just caught up to email technology or if like Open Table just released their lists to restaurants, but first of all, I got an email from a restaurant that's in San Diego. I haven't lived in San Diego in 12 years, and I have not been to this restaurant
please come
in
back.
At least 12
come
years.
back, O'Leary.
I'll come and visit, but I couldn't even remember what it was. I was like, what is this restaurant group? Something in San Diego. To top that, I got an email from a restaurant in DC that I can tell you I haven't visited since the early aughts. I was like, oh my God. I know when I was there last, and I'm pretty sure it was 2003. So guys, what are you doing? Why are you emailing me like this? I don't even live there anymore. So
wow. Great example though. Great example. But if they were more consistent about their emails, right? We wouldn't have these random acts.
Totally. And I might have visited them in the last 20 years. I might have a connection to them instead of thinking like, I haven't eaten mussels with fries at this cafe in DC in 20 years. And I mean, the flip side is I probably would have unsubscribed, which again, unsubscribing is not always a bad thing. I think people freak out about unsubscribes, but it would mean that this restaurant has like a good list of people who love them and want to hear from them and are opening their content and then boosting their reputation with the ESPs, which is always a good thing. So I think you and I agree that like, if you're not going to buy and you don't want what I have, please feel free to unsubscribe. Please feel free.
Yeah, so true. All right, let's move on. We promised an AI bit. Let's move on to our third biggest copywriting mistake. And it's this idea that we can use AI with no editing. So I know I alluded to last week's episode where I talked about ways to use AI and ways to not use AI. And I stole your concept of it being a junior copywriter, right? And exhausting AI because there is no limit, right? But you can't leave it at that, right? We can't just expect it to just take it home from us, right? Take it home for us. Like, talk a little bit about that, O'Leary.
I think that this problem is maybe more prevalent in like marketing leadership. I think anyone who's been in the trenches, I think we were naturally suspicious, right? Of anything that's like, oh, this is going to write like your client immediately. Like this is going to ghostwrite immediately, like someone you've worked 2 hard years to capture their voice and AI is just going to do it, right? I think the copywriters were like, no, it's not.
No.
But I think a lot of leaders were like, oh yeah, I can pretty much get rid of my content staff.
Right.
Yeah. I don't need content staff anymore. We can just churn out blog posts. As you and I've discovered with like a couple different projects, it really, there's a lot of massaging to happen. And, it's like many things, you got to put work in up front, like gold in, gold out, and the opposite of gold in gets the opposite of gold out. Like if you're not priming it with great prompts, I worked with some great folks lately, Tarzan K and Nicole Edwards, who have like a template for a voice guide you put in. So you like prime the AI with a voice guide. And that gets it like, 60, 70% of the way there. But if you're not doing that, if you're not doing the work up front, you're not going to get anywhere. It makes mistakes. It gets details wrong.
Yeah.
I had some well-meaning folks recently, like we tried to feed some bios into AI to shorten them down, and we were working with some thought experts and we thought, oh, let's let AI shorten them down. But when I reread them, I realized it messed up a lot of the details, which would have been really embarrassing when you're trying to work with a thought leader like trying to be respectful, and you're like, can you please review this bio that I completely mangled with the help of AI? I also think it's like it's not great at, at rhythm and cadence quite yet, and maybe it'll get there because, people have had it write songs. So it doesn't not know how to do it, but I think we still have to teach AI how to do it. And for every copywriter, rhythm and cadence isn't really as important, but I happen to have a musical background, and the sound of it really matters to me. So AI can turn out some real word salads that just, I mean, we had one recently that was like, it's 26 days to 21 effects to 72. It was like four numbers in a sentence. And I was like, I don't even know what this is talking about. Like, this thing is crazy. But, I also think like thinking you don't need AI is also a huge mistake for the reasons you mentioned. It's like indefatigable. I mean,
Yeah.
how exhausting is it to come up with titles? It's exhausting. I mean,
Yes.
oh, and you can just tell it, no, make me 30 more. No, I didn't like that one. Put another one in, use this word. And it just like cheerfully
Just
like
does it.
gets it going.
Doesn't get
By the
tired.
way, have you discovered, there's this rumor floating around that if you're nice to ChatGPT, it turns out better results. Are you
I mean,
nice
I'm
to
not
it?
mean to ChatGPT. I'm not like, get to it. I'm not yelling at it or anything. I don't use
There's a theory
cruel
that if you like
words.
stroke its ego, if you're like,
Oh, like that was
oh,
brilliant. Oh, I'll try it.
yes. Like, I really liked this. You were really close, but let's just tweak it a little bit.
Okay,
Like, you
I'm
kind
definitely
of,
not encouraging.
okay, I don't know, try it. Try
I'm gonna
it.
try it.
I'm just
Any
preparing, like, in case the overlords, like our robot overlords, take over. I
Hey,
just want to be remembered as the person who was
I think
nice.
that's a great idea. And I know there's some people that you like to get inspiration from in this
Totally.
area, right?
I think we'll put him in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a guy, Christopher S. Penn. He's a little on the brainier side in terms of like how AI works, but he's got some great practical frameworks. He releases a newsletter every weekend that he's one I read every week because I think he's got good stuff. There's a guy, Bionic Marketing. He's good. I took this class with Tarzan Kay and Nicole Edwards. That was great. I think they're redoing it again in a couple weeks. And we got a recommendation recently for this guy, Jonathan Mast. And
Yeah.
he runs a really great Facebook group where people come in and just show their results and share their prompts. And, a lot of it is stuff that I will probably never use, but it's really fascinating to see the inner workings. And, there's a lot of prompt troubleshooting in there, which I love, right? Because
Yeah.
how many times have you gone there, given what you think is an awesome prompt, and you get like not what you want back, and you're like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So it's a great group, and I think your best bet is to keep leveling up in new tech that everybody thinks is cool, to keep yourself on the cutting edge.
Okay, I love it. I'm going to do a shameless plug for our course right now because
Do
we
it.
will be talking about AI. We will be talking about how to come up with those great prompts because to me, that's part of being a great copywriter. We also will be talking about flow of email. You mentioned that earlier, and I never realized it's really your music background that makes you such a great artist and architect of these emails that flow so well. And I guess I never thought about it that way. I was like, why can't people understand the structure and the framework of this? And we're going to walk through that as part of the course. So shameless plug, go to the sales page, linked in the show notes. Let's go to copywriting mistake number 4. And this is tied to AI, right? And just not having any darn personality. Not have, right? And not shining
Totally.
through. What's that about? Why wouldn't you have
Well,
personality?
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, AI is not going to give you a
Yeah,
personality.
true.
Maybe you could sit around with AI and like help come up with a persona for yourself. I mean, I think there's a really interesting idea out there in marketing of like the persona versus the real person, right? Because the person that you're putting out there online is probably an exaggerated version of yourself, right? So maybe
Mhm.
AI could help you come up with that person. But I think personality is going to become even more important as we keep churning out faceless content. What's going to stand out are the people like you and I both love Laura Belgray. We saw her at Traffic and Conversion many years ago.
Oh,
She tells
right.
like
Yeah.
wild stories.
Yeah.
She's got a really great personality that like shines through her emails. And listen, if you're having trouble with sales, I highly recommend you sign up for her stuff because she is a shameless saleswoman and she will tell you she is. Like, and in fact, she has this great email about why do we even have to say shameless? It's just a sale. Like either you
Right.
want
Why
it
did
or
I
you
just say
don't.
shameless? I actually have no shame. I'm
Indeed.
fine talking about it.
Indeed. And you sent me something the other day from Mark Manson. He's a
Mark
great
Manson.
example of someone with a ton of personality. That's just personality first up there.
Basically, I'll post that. I'll post that picture in the show notes about people critiquing you. Okay, I love that. Uh Anything else that you wanted to tell us about personality before we wrap up and do our fifth and final mistake?
I think it's just, one of those like best defenses against losing your job to AI, let your personality shine through. Leverage that personality, leverage a strong point of view. Our client we write for, Bo Eason, he has such a strong point of view.
Ugh,
And as a result, I think it's very hard to get AI to write like him. I mean, we've
I
fed AI
agree.
his book, we've fed him his emails,
Yeah.
but there's something about his voice that AI hasn't captured yet. But I just love his strong point of view, and I think that makes him stand out. And his audience, like, if you love him, you love him. Like he's just like he's got his like hooks in you in a good way, and he's like dragging you to the top with him. So I think there's that. And I mean, if we're on the topic of like, losing your job to AI, let's talk about strategy, right? We were sort of teased that at the
Mm.
front that if you're going to be the copywriter who churns out like welcome emails, you might lose your stuff to ChatGPT because
Yeah,
ChatGPT can
confirmation
kind of do that.
emails
Oh
like
yeah.
here, yeah, deliver. Yeah.
My God,
You're
why are those? Are there people out there who love writing those? Because
no,
for
no
me,
one.
oh God,
No.
they're so painful. How can we make them
No.
better? Let's think
I
about that, you and
I
I.
think, and Bo talks about this, right? The most valuable person in the room will always be employable, right? And you need
Mm.
to make sure you are the most valuable person in the room. And how do you do that? Strategy. If I know that you can come in, tell me what this campaign is about, how to message the audience in a way that just gets them dying to buy, that you are the most influential, most valuable person in the room, O'Leary.
Absolutely. And it's honestly going to make your life easier. Like I find it actually hard to come into a project where they just like hand it over to you and say, "Okay,
Mhm.
here's the deal and you got to make this sound sexy." Whereas like when you're involved in the creation of it and you're there helping it sound sexy, I can already see how I'm going to market it. Does that make sense? I think a lot of
Yeah.
these are about that we're going to talk about are about you helping them figure out how to market it. And
Yes.
when you have your hands in the pie early, your job as a copywriter is so much easier. So like one of the things we're going to talk about is how to form an offer. We'll talk about this in our
Hmm.
course, how to turn things into a must buy. And
Yeah.
a client might come to you and say, "Hey, I just published a book. Can you help me promote my book?" And that's one thing. I mean, honestly, you could probably feed the book into ChatGPT and ChatGPT could come up with a promotion plan. But, what if you said to the client, "Hey, they could either buy your book for 14.95, or why don't you put together like a coaching course that goes along with this book to help
I love
people
that.
like
Yes.
6 weeks, and we're actually going to put what's in the book into implementation. And so then we can charge 297, 397. And, so let's offer that. Let's add some urgency, right? The course starts 2 weeks from now, so buy now. Like that really transforms your relationship with that client because you're not just taking what they gave you and doing the job. You're changing the game and making their results better.
Yeah. And for those solopreneurs out there, right, who are writing your own copy, just being able to think a little differently and be able to step outside. So you don't have to hire that really expensive copywriter, right? You can think this way for yourself and just kind of thinking through that process is a skill set. So thinking through what you think through, O'Leary, every time you get a campaign or you get a different client, to me, that's invaluable. Because if we can gain some of that skill set, then we can do it for ourselves as well.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it's a learned skill. I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
either you or I were really born with it, but we started doing this, what, 15 years ago, and we
Mhm.
kind of sat at the feet of the masters and watched them we watched them come up with these things and we were like, oh yeah, okay, well, what if we layer that on? And what if we layer that on? So I think it's a skill and also it's a template, right? I mean, there's a formula that works really well for it. So, and that's something we'll share in the course for sure.
Yes.
I also think, troubleshooting, because I think you can sometimes you run a campaign and, you do the best you think you can and you don't get the results you wanted. And sometimes that falls back on the copywriter. Like they'll come back to you and say like, your copy didn't work. And if you have a broader sense of the business and the strategy, I think you can come back and not you're not trying to say, listen, it wasn't my copy. You're trying to say, hey, let's sit down and analyze this a little better to understand how we could do better the next time. Because all marketing is an experiment, right? We run an experiment, we see how it
100%.
goes, and then we tweak and we do it again. So, if you keep broadening your expertise into things like email deliverability, like if you have like, and I'm not saying you need to become like a Pardot expert or a Salesforce certified whatever. I'm saying you need to understand the basics of, were these statistics in line with your other emails? Are these better or worse than what you're getting? When was the last time you emailed your list before you sent this out? And, understanding that maybe they haven't purged their list in 5 or 6 years. They're a restaurant and they're sending, emails to clients from 20 years ago, which, surprise, isn't going to get them any results. So that and like what we were calling customer journey management. You and I worked with a
Yes.
client and their like default landing page was, oh my God, it was so bad. And it was institutional. Like there was nothing we could do to change it within those structures, but it was the kind of thing where you land on there and you have no idea what to do next. You're just
Right.
like walls of text, no clickable big buttons, no direction. And so you were like, we're building our own landing page. Like, I'm not using this. And that could be a problem. People think the problem's with your email. It's not. It could sometimes
Right.
be with your landing page. And so the more you can get a sense of that overall strategy and what's going on, the more useful you can be, because ChatGPT is not doing that yet. So that's
Love it.
something that, if you can be that for your clients, you're going to be sticking around. You're going to be the most valuable person in the room.
Love it. That, by the way, was our fifth mistake, and I didn't frame it up front, but not
Oh,
thinking beyond the words, right? So I just want to leave myself open in case I want to say 5 ways that or 5 copywriting mistakes. This has
love
been
it.
absolutely genius, I think, O'Leary. I can't wait to do this course with you. I'm so excited. We'll link to that in the show notes. Would you like to do a little plug too to buy the book?
Oh, sure. Listen, if you are, I will always plug my book.
Do it.
If you like a good mystery story and maybe you want to take a little trip to the Caribbean, I mean, we're releasing this in the winter, so it's a little bit maybe it's chilly where you are and you want a little escape, or
I love
given the
it.
news of the year, maybe you just want an escape, period. You just want to go
100%.
somewhere else and think about other things for right now.
Yes.
I welcome you to check out my book. It's called Into the Blue, and you can find it at meganoleary.com. You'll find that URL in the show notes, but
Yes, you will.
would love to have you as a reader. And if you like it, leave me a review. If you don't
Okay.
like it, send me an email. Do me a favor, just email me and I would be happy to
You'll
talk
like
further
it.
about it with you.
You will like it. Thanks for being on. Head to the show notes. I'm going to plug it again when I close this out. But
Great.
head to the show notes for all the goodies about our course that's coming up. And thanks again for coming by, O'Leary.
Hey, always my pleasure. If we want to do this every 6 years, I'm totally down with it, or
Let's
more
do it
often.
sooner than that. All right, what did you think? Did it spur some ideas in you about how to really make your copy connect and convert your people? Did you learn a little bit more about AI? Go back and listen to last week's episode too, by the way. Do you maybe have some ideas how you can build more trust with your people? Well, hopefully you took notes. If you like what you heard and you want more of O'Leary and I live teaching you, sign up for the wait list for the Conversion Copywriting Playbook and get first dibs when we officially open doors. And again, we're going to walk through frameworks of emails. We're going to talk through campaigns. There's going to be a course marketing bonus. We're going to go live. You're going to get critiques of your copy and content. It's going to be a fun class. I'll link to that in the show notes. I'll link to the wait list. And until next time, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.